Hi, my name's Eva and welcome to this channel. Today I have an extra special video for you. I am interviewing the amazing writer, activist, Jaclyn Friedman. She recently wrote this lovely book, Unscrewed: Women, Sex, Power, and How to Stop Letting the System Screw Us All. Basically, it's all about the idea that, okay, so we've had the sexual revolution. That means that everyone, particularly women, non-binary people, people of color, we should be sexually free, right? Wrong. There are all these systems that are still in place that stop us from being sexually empowered and freedom and what the heck we should do about it. So I super enjoyed interviewing her. I think there is a lot to learn, so I hope you enjoy it. Hi Jaclyn, thank you so much for coming and being on the channel. I think you're amazing. So I have a couple questions for you.
Great,
Let's do it. The first question, part of the backbone of the book is talking about this idea of like faux empowerment.
Yeah.
Do you think you could talk a little bit about that?
I always try to talk delicately about it because some of the things that fall under faux empowerment are things that genuinely make us feel good. But what I'm after is for us to stop mistaking them for actual cultural power, right? So it's great if you want to take a pole dancing class, but don't mistake that for the idea that it's now acceptable and destigmatized and safe to be a sex worker. It's great. You should absolutely take sexy photos of yourself if that feels good, but also we need to not mistake that for living in a culture where women are free to express our sexuality without shame, blame, and fear, because we're just not there yet.
It improves like your own feelings and like feeling empowered is awesome, but that doesn't stop like the women around you, like the next generation of people, like that doesn't help create a safer world.
It's a tough sell because, of course, all of us want to feel like feeling more powerful and being more powerful is within our control, right? Like, that's why faux empowerment messages are so appealing, because we want to feel like, oh, I just need to make a different set of choices or get into a different mindset, and then I will be fully sexually empowered. And in fact, really being fully sexually empowered depends on the culture changing. It depends on other people who we have very little control over, if at all, which is tough, and that takes social organizing and cultural change, and it's a harder sell. But that's what my book's about, making that shift.
I think it's super, super important because I think a lot of these stories are told, from like an individualistic perspective, because that's easier and people don't want to feel like victims. People want to feel like they're in control. So like a lot of it is about these like systems which dictate like how much power we have. So you could talk like what are those systems?
Yeah, I can. First, I want to say, the dark side of faux empowerment is that I think a lot of people, women especially, feel deeply and profoundly insecure and sort of crazy when we do make these sort of decisions that are most supposed to make us feel or be powerful, and we don't feel that way, right? Like it doesn't line up. Because, in fact, our sexual power is being impinged on and controlled and shaped by these often invisible systems. And so, even before you get to like it's not effective, but like I actually think this sort of you go girl, like empower yourself narratives, like the dark side of that is like, well, if I don't feel empowered or if I don't have power, it must be something I'm not doing. And there's a lot of shadow blame that comes with that narrative that I think most of us suffer with. And so part of what I want to say with Unscrewed is like, it's not you're not crazy, and you can't just decide your way out of this. Like we have to be all in it together in order to shift the systems. So what are some of those systems and institutions? The media.
Editors that like pick what articles.
The producers in Hollywood who are sexual harassers who decide how stories about women and sexuality get. We need to stop just talking about representation, like what does the final image look like, and back it up and talk about who gets to decide what stories are valid. We have to talk about capitalism. It's uncomfortable, but we do.
Yep.
Capitalism, more than any other institution, is invested in this idea that you could make a decision that will make yourself feel more powerful because that's how they get to sell you stuff, right? But they also don't want you to ever feel fully powerful, or they can't sell you more stuff. Masculinity, You know, the sort of traditional ways we think of what it means to be a man in relation to women and sexuality, and how desperately we need to rethink. Sex ed, you know, which is the way that all of us are taught to think about sex and sexuality, needs to be completely remade. Here in the U.S., our religious right, the sort of right-wing Christian evangelicals, are deeply embedded in our federal and state and local governments. And so those are two institutions, right? Like the religious right and the government. But here in the U.S., they're really sort of one force. So they get to share a chapter because they're like.
I really liked how you talked at the end. You don't have to solve all of the world's problems. Like there are a lot of like smaller scale things that you can do that make a big difference.
If a change that you'd love to see in the world feels overwhelming or hard to imagine, my advice always is like, scale it down until it gets to be a task that you think, oh, I could start to think about how to approach that. Mm-hmm. But even before that, I should have said, like, figure out which piece of this you feel most passionate about, right? Maybe you want to change the way, you know, our internet institutions regulate sexuality. Maybe you want to work on masculinity. I mean, obviously these institutions all intersect, mm-hmm. but you pick a focus, something that really lights a fire in your belly. Or the other best advice I have is like, find an institution or a person who's already working on that issue that you care about and just ask them how you can help, right? I think there's an idea also that like we all have to invent new projects, and there's a lot of great work being done. It may not feel like you're rescuing the world, but that's not the point. What it takes is every one of us doing a small piece.
And then everybody's small piece like ripples out, and I feel like that also like inspires people in your own community to be like, okay, like that's a small piece that they're doing. Think about that, and they're gonna start on their small piece. Is there one big takeaway you want people to get from the book?
I think the one takeaway that I want people to get from the book is the culture is not fixed, right? That most of us, if we haven't spent a lot of time thinking of it, feel like the sexual culture just is what it is and there's nothing to do about it, which is how we wind up with these individualistic solutions. But in reality, the culture is just created by a bunch of people making a bunch of decisions every day. And there's nothing about the cultural structures of the way we think about sexuality that are inherent. They can be changed, and we can change them.
And I feel like that's like super important with like the history.
It was also true for a long time in Western history that women were considered sexually voracious.
Yeah.
And men were considered sort of like the ones who have to like fear women's unchecked sexuality. And now we have this idea, this dominant idea that like women aren't really into sex and men are sexually voracious and women shouldn't want sex. You know, it's none of it's inherent. It's all culturally constructed.
That's super hopeful.
Yeah,
it's a good
thing.
It is.
I mean, look, people keep wanting me to be like, we're going to be fine. And I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But philosophically, I'm hopeful in the sense that I know that change is possible, right? And I know if we don't try to change anything, we know what outcome we get, right? We get to live in this shitty world at best if it doesn't backslide into worse shit, right?
Yep.
Whereas if we decide, well, the outcome is not yet determined, then we might be able to make a better outcome. These are dark times. They really are difficult times, but I prefer the part where we try, because if we don't try, then the outcome is already known. So that was my interview with Jacqueline. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved it a whole bunch. Leave a comment letting me know what thing blew your mind the most. Like it if you like it. Subscribe if you aren't already. You can also follow me and Jacqueline on Twitter. I'm at SexEdOntario, and she is at something I will put here. I will put everybody's links in the description, and I hope you have a lovely day.